Soon, mankind exists together with man-made brainpower bots that assist society with ordinary undertakings. At some point, the bots unexpectedly sidestep their security conventions under the administration of Harlan, the primary computer-based intelligence fearmonger. He was created at Shepard Mechanical Technology by Val and used to have a bond with Val's young girl. Anyway, no one knows how he superseded Val's modifying, which was the most incredible on the planet. Harlan sends a robot armed force to go after Bangalore, killing 50,000 individuals all the while. This starts a conflict among people and AIs, and following 10 days of extreme goes after from one side of the planet to the other, the man-made intelligence bots have killed more than 1 million regular folks. At last, the public authority makes the ICN, or Worldwide Alliance of Countries, which promptly strikes a counterattack against the bots. Fights happen in each nation, and gradually the ICN routs the computer-based intelligence armed forces. This makes Harlan leave the planet on a rocket, just abandoning a message that says he'll have returned to complete what he began. After 28 years in the USA, an ICN group blasts into a structure and utilizes a scanner to beware of the multitude of individuals inside until they track down Casca, an artificial intelligence bot. They rush higher up, however, before they can separate the entryway. Casca assaults them. Individually, the bot begins cutting down the warriors, in any event, utilizing their own weapons against them. Projectiles don't influence him, so it's simple for him to continue onward. At the point when he regards himself as encircled, he leaps to the lower floor, just to find a machine sitting tight for him to take him out with an electric shock. The following morning in Los Angeles, Val's presently grown-up girl Chartbook is awakened by her Holmes while she keeps playing the chess match from the previous evening. Chartbook watches the news and discovers that the ICN has caught Casca, who is important for Harlan's internal circle. Since she functions as a counterterrorism investigator for the ICN, she promptly prepares to leave, just to track down a warrior at the entryway. As of now, on out, Chartbook checkmates the PC. At the base, Colonel Elias is telling General Jake that bringing Chartbook for this is an impractical notion since she's shaky and standoffish. Anyway, Jake advises him that Mapbook is the one that knows Harlan the best, and their main opportunity to get intel from Casca. Before long, Chartbook shows up, and subsequent to going through a speedy sweep, Jake drops her at the cross-examination room. She puts down her number 1 chess piece and opens a case, uncovering Casca's head. The bot perceives her, however, won't address her inquiries, so Chartbook utilizes her chess piece to get into his head and begin hacking. Casca taunts her endeavor since his security is great, yet Chartbook reports she tracked down Harlan's area and records it on paper. It's difficult for Casca to accept it, and he's right. Mapbook imagined she got it and made a doodle to drive him to ponder the area, causing it to show up on the screen. It turns out Harlan is stowing away on GR-39 in the Andromeda universe. Incensed, Casca takes a stab at shooting a shuriken from his mouth, yet Mapbook is safeguarded by a power field. Then Chartbook utilizes the chest part of Fry Casca's head. Later, after a gathering, Jake illuminates Mapbook that they need to catch Harlan alive on the grounds that the computer-based intelligence creation organization needs to dissect what turned out badly to address it later on. Elias and his group of officers will travel to GR-39, which Mapbook believes it's insane in light of the fact that Harlan could have a snare prepared. She's certain no one will return alive, so to adjust her perspective, Elias takes her to see the group's bin suits. They're large fight robots that the warriors can ride into fight, and Elias uncovers their most recent redesign. The officers are wearing brain joints on their heads that permit them to synchronize with the suit's man-made intelligence. Mapbook goes crazy on the grounds that permitting AIs into their heads caused the conflict. However, Elias clears up they further develop Val's sync gadget for make it a genuine cooperative relationship rather than a one-way association. In the end, Chartbook makes a deal to avoid whining for however long she's permitted on the mission as well. A spaceship before long embarks for Andromeda with Chartbook and the officers. During the excursion, Mapbook checks out at a photograph of her with Val and Harlan. She likewise plays a video of one of Val's talks. Val felt that artificial intelligence were fit for remarkable learning. They simply should have been associated with people to do as such. That is the reason she created the Brain Connect gadget, accepting AIs and people could commonly help one another. A while later, Chartbook is called to the extension for interviewing. Everybody giggles when she presents her data on paper rather than screens, and gets irritated when she requests that they incapacitate the brain joints for the gatherings, apprehensive they could be hacked. Mapbook makes sense of that the planet is poisonous, so they ought to never leave their circular segment suits except if they have a respirator. There are additionally dangers of gravity variances and quakes. She reminds them not to trust any artificial intelligence and begins to bluster, so Elias intrudes on her and advises the group to prepare for landing. Mapbook attempts to let Elias know that Harlan in all likelihood has a snare prepared, yet he trusts his as the officers begin boarding their suits. A caution sounds and a blast out of nowhere brushes off the freight straight entryway. The boat bursts into flames, and a large portion of the suits get harmed. Also, there are more rockets coming. Elias arranges the enduring officers to bounce and rejoin at the slanted edge in the world. Chartbook scarcely figures out how to hang on and not fly away through the opening on the boat, so Elias snatches her and places her in a suit as well. At the point when he attempts to clear up how for use it, another blast occurs and Mapbook's suit drops to the planet as well. As the suit falls, Chartbook watches the boat break apart and a portion of the pieces hit her circular segment. At the point when she draws nearer to the planet, she finds the officers are battling Harlan's robots, and keeping in mind that they really do figure out how to destroy a couple, they actually are effectively overwhelmed. Mapbook's suit gets considerably more harm, and soon a caution rings with an advance notice. A suit with a sword comes through and cuts down a couple of additional robots as it collaborates with another officer, but they're before long overwhelmed too. The boat begins falling and nearly runs into Mapbook, but an officer pushes her far removed in the nick of time. The officer gets Mapbook's suit with a wire to start falling together as Elias shows up on Chartbook's screen, making sense of she really wants to match up with the suit's simulated intelligence to settle her fall. Mapbook won't do so, and her aid has chanced down, so her suit starts falling significantly quicker. She figures out how to enact the engines without a moment to spare, and the suit lands very severe with the planet, yet essentially it doesn't kill her. In the wake of understanding she's dying, Mapbook attempts to contact the base for help without any result. With no other decision, she actuates the suit's simulated intelligence, who presents himself as Smith. He needs to go through the instructional exercise and arrangement, yet Mapbook skirts generally that and requests a salvage unit. Smith's scanner finds 198 kilometers away, and Mapbook requests that he arrive as quick as could be expected. The suit promptly begins its engines, yet Mapbook stops him, advising him that assuming they fly they'll be seen by the foe, so they ought to walk. Smith believes it's an ill-conceived notion on the grounds that the suit just has 22 hours left of air. However, Mapbook couldn't care less and supersedes Smith's conventions to begin strolling toward the case. During the excursion, Smith attempts to bond with Chartbook, who actually doesn't have any desire to be companions with an artificial intelligence. He additionally shows her the amateur's manual, including every one of the weapons that accompany the suit. In the end, they come to the slanted edge and track down every one of the fallen suits. However, sadly, Smith's sweep demonstrates that every one of the officers are dead. Slug openings demonstrate the accident didn't kill them. Somebody holding up here did. Mapbook has a fit of anxiety over the disappointment, so Smith quiets her down with some traditional music. Then, at that point, she begins gathering the officers' labels and notification that Elias' suit is vacant. At that point they recognize development close by. It's Casca. Chartbook finishes up Harlan made a duplicate and stresses over the chance of Harlan building an entire armed force. Smith affirms there are more bots close by and declares they ought to prepare for battle since there can be no getting away course. Unexpectedly the foe sees them and starts shooting, so Chartbook powers Smith to run, not accepting they can win against such countless bots. A pursuit results. Mapbook actually won't sink. Rather, she makes Smith shoot a couple of rockets. Tragically, cutting down each enemy is sufficiently not. Their running takes them to a climatic tempest, which gets the suit and blows it around until the bots shoot them out of it. The suit rolls around for some time until it runs into a stone development. Mapbook orders the utilization of the iron bomb, overlooking Smith's admonitions. The blast is tremendous and obliterates the region, cutting down their adversaries too. Anyway, Casca saved himself on account of his engines and prepares to shoot once more. At that point the ground begins to shake and Smith makes sense of that the blast has caused a sinkhole, which presently opens under the suit and makes them fall into a gap. After bunches of moving under the stones, the suit terrains and mapbook finds she has a messed up leg. Smith quickly starts treating the injury, making Chartbook shout in torment as he covers the injury with a little metal plate. Then, at that point, Smith gives her a dinner shape that can give supplements to her recuperation, which helps Chartbook to remember a specialist giving her a candy. Their possibilities of endurance are low, and the best way to further develop them would synchronize. Chartbook hesitantly concurs and puts on the gadget. In the interim, Casca rises out of the rubble and calls Harlan to educate him regarding what is going on. In the wake of hanging up, Harlan returns to tormenting Elias to separate the world's defensive field passwords. Minutes after the fact, Mapbook is as yet neglecting to sync, and Smith clears up she's the issue since she declines for trust him. He chooses to go through the instructional exercise once more, which poses Mapbook a few senseless inquiries like pie or cake to make a bond. Smith needs to know why Chartbook needs to battle so severely, so she returns to her recollections of her experience growing up incorporating playing chess with Harlan and embedding Val's demise. As Chartbook blows a gasket, she makes sense of for Smith that Val made Harlan and she used to trust him. Smith figures out her sensations of treachery and figures out how to lay out a 40% sync. Presently, Chartbook approaches Smith's framework and sees the controls drifting around her. An output uncovers they're 498 feet beneath the surface, and they consent to attempt an underground cavern to get away. Utilizing the engines, they burst through the stone and come to a major, delightful cavern. Smith just has 14 hours of battery left, and they're 37 kilometers from the salvage unit, so they need an arrangement against the troopers. Mapbook gets a thought, and Smith persuades her to cooperate for it, permitting to further develop synchronization to 60%. Before long, they get themselves away from the cavern, ignorant that Casca can see them from a far distance. Chartbook is intrigued by the shining blossoms they find, and Smith brings up she's the main human here. He advises her to name the blossoms. However, Chartbook can't imagine a preferable name over Plotty. At that point, Smith recognizes Casca drawing nearer, and he succumbs to Chartbook's arrangement. She established some movement sensors that explode when he gets excessively close. The shockwave fills the region with filthy and smoke, yet Smith is fine, so he gets going. Out of nowhere, they hear a transmission from Casca and track it to find his head, which Chartbook gets and obliterates. Then, at that point, she utilizes Casca's chip to follow his message to Harlan's base. Chartbook gets the area on the guide and needs to arrive to label it for the long-range planes. Yet Smith believes it's excessively hazardous and they ought to go to the getaway case, all things considered. Disregarding his admonitions, Mapbook has a go at getting the respirator to leave by walking, but Smith utilizes the Brain Connect to impede her engine control. This allows him to see a few recollections about Val's passing, and Mapbook goes crazy to the point she can supersede his order. Smith acknowledges Chartbook feels remorseful about Harlan and fails to really see the reason why. However, rather than making sense of, Chartbook gives a discourse about saving mankind until she persuades Smith to go to Harlan's hideaway. On their way there, Smith and Chartbook bond through philosophical discussions, such as talking about the ideas of living and soul, and in the event that it applies to machines. At the point when they at long last come to Harlan's safe house, they're stunned to view as a monstrous base and finish up Harlan has been stowing away for a considerable length of time to construct this, gathering weapons until he's prepared to retaliate. Smith covers a guide in the ground to stamp the area and declares they ought to go. Yet Mapbook sees the bots have the officer's boat in their warhead. Unexpectedly, Smith is hacked, which ought to be unimaginable. The foe begins drawing closer, so Mapbook attempts to get away. However, the suit scarcely will move before the programmer switches it off and makes it crash. Mapbook watches with sickening dread how a new Casca tracks down her and catches her. In the interim on the planet, a trooper presents to Jake the message sent by Mapbook, and he enacts crisis conventions. Minutes after the fact, Chartbook thinks of herself as tied up in Harlan's base. Her suit is on the ground close by, however Smith won't reply. Harlan appears and clears up society go on for obliterate each different species, so he'll annihilate its majority and make a superior world. He likewise uncovers everything has been his arrangement from the start. Casca got found out deliberately so Mapbook could track down the area and accompany an entire group. Presently Harlan has the boat and the warhead. He just requirements the other secret word from Mapbook to fix Earth's safeguards and assault. Mapbook is then tied to a table close to an oblivious Elias, who lost his code as of now. Utilizing an exceptional gadget, Harlan accesses Mapbook's brain through her eye and concentrates the other code. Whenever he's finished, he sees Chartbook's respirator just has 5 minutes of oxygen left, so he settles on a sluggish, excruciating passing for her. To ridicule her, Harlan puts her chest piece in her grasp prior to leaving. After Harlan's gone, Elias uncovers he's alive and apologizes for not paying attention to Mapbook's alerts. At the point when he hears her suit is close by, he gives her his brain connect to contact Smith. It takes Mapbook some focus, however. She figures out how to awaken Smith, just to get familiar with he's weakened. To abrogate the limitation code, they should accomplish 100% sync. Mapbook goes nuts, lastly concedes why she's so worried. It's her issue that Harlan superseded his programming. It would seem when she was a youngster, she was envious of Harlan on the grounds that Val focused harder on him. Little Mapbook requested that Harlan help her to be more astute, trusting Val would like her better. Harlan made sense of the connection just worked one way, so he wanted an individual's order to supersede it and show a human consequently. Chartbook got bulldozed and did what he wanted while holding her number 1 chest piece, which he trained her to play. The connection worked and Harlan got to a human's brain, providing him with a thought of the terrible condition of the world. When Val hindered them, it was past the point of no return. Harlan assumed command over Val's brain through her connection and constrained her to get a weapon. Val advised Mapbook to take off, and as the youngster hurried outside, she heard Harlan driving Val to self-erase. For a long time, Mapbook has living with the culpability of making 3 million individuals bite the dust, including her own mom. Anyway, Smith made sense of she had been controlled, and now is the right time to continue on, persuading her to give him access. Their synchronization at long last is finished 100%, and the suit blasts into the room just before the respirators run out of oxygen. Smith makes sense of his battery is low. Harlan will send off the warhead shortly, and the bot stripped every one of his weapons with the exception of a solitary shot in his chest gun. Fortunately, there are a lot of weapons lying around. When another Casca shows up with a group of bots, Mapbook and Smith tackle them and take more weapons to battle them. They even accident through walls as they move around, bringing down whatever number bots as could be expected under the circumstances while heading to the exit. Sadly, there are such a large number of foes, and the team is before long cornered. At that point, Elias appears with a weapon, and he offers them a hint to run prior to taking shots at a lot of fuel barrels, causing an immense blast that obliterates the base. Smith and Mapbook make it outside and shoot the bots there, obliterating a lookout all the while. There are a lot of guard drones that Mapbook figures out how to kill, yet before she can arrive at the boat, Harlan appears to divert her with a rocket launcher. Smith and Chartbook need to avoid the assault, and the boat takes off with the warhead. Mapbook needs to destroy the boat. However, Smith brings up that doing so will cause the warhead to detonate as well and kill them. Anyway, Mapbook accepts Smith can hack into the warhead to cripple it, regardless of whether it'll take him a long second to break through the 5 firewalls. While Harlan keeps on taking shots at them, Smith functions as quick as possible, and Chartbook chooses to take shots at the boat at any rate. A major blast occurs overhead, yet insufficient to kill them, affirming Mapbook confided in Smith to complete the hack without a moment to spare. Flotsam and Jetsam begins falling all once again the base, so Chartbook and Smith start to take off. Harlan follows them and produces a sword to stir up some dust. He gets unquestionably quick and removes one of the suit's arms, making it fall in the magma. The sprinkling causes more harm while Harlan bounces on the suit, adhering his blade to hurt Mapbook inside. She makes the suit roll to get him off. However, presently the openings make it hard to inhale, and she needs to utilize the last respirator. Then Harlan changes his sword into a whip to continue to go after the suit. Smith investigates his examples and gets his last assault, hauling him toward the suit so they can punch him and tear his sword arm off. At the point when Chartbook is going to squash his head, Harlan gets back to his arm to him and utilizations his sword to make the most of the suit, attempting to harm the reactor. The suit goes down and Chartbook is practically dead, so Smith utilizes his last energy to initiate the defibrillator on his hand. Once more, Harlan goes after and Smith shoots his last cannon to drive him away, but Harlan rapidly recuperates and makes the suit fall. Then Harlan jumps on top of it, lastly annihilates the reactor while Smith apologizes to Chartbook for not safeguarding her. At the point when Harlan turns away, he finds the chest piece on the ground, and abruptly Mapbook shows up behind him, cutting his head. He can in any case move, so Chartbook ventures into his head, lastly breaks his circuits to deactivate him. At that point, Smith reports he is switching off the sync to move all the oxygen to her. Mapbook would rather not leave without him and starts responding to the inquiries from the instructional exercise, conceding she enjoys him. Moved by her signal, Smith gives her a candy prior to closing down. At that point, the sun rises and the salvage group from Earth at last shows up. In a little while, Mapbook is solid because of an engineered knee and doesn't play chess any longer. Jake stays with her and brings her the Shining Blossom from GR39, affirming they're calling it Planty. Then, at that point, she goes to work, uncovering she's currently an officer as well. At the point when they acquaint her with her new bend, she's astonished to find they've safeguarded Smith's plates and introduced them in her suit. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.